probably wondering why the hell have I gone to Lambeth North Tube Station? Which is a fair question, but the reason we're here is because according to the Orange survey, the people who map Britain, this is where Go is on the Monopoly board. I don't know why it's here. I guess it's because it's halfway between Mayfair and Old Kent Road, and that sort of makes sense geographically, but I'm not willing to argue with them, because it was this blog post from them that first off from a tweet because of less cubes that I am here. And we are about to do a whole lap of the Monopoly board because I obviously have nothing better to do on my Wednesdays. So, we're starting here at Lambeth North, that nice little tube station over there. And, well, next stop is obvious, it's Old Kent Road. So I picked the 21 bus and headed off there. On the way we pass Elephant and Castle, with an interesting name and an interesting tower which has wind turbines built into its roof. And then we arrive at Old Kent Road itself, which, as you would expect for the first property on Monopoly board and lowest value, isn't spectacular, to be honest. It's really just a normal UK high street. You know, low buildings, small shops, and surprisingly it took me a long time to actually find anything that indicated this was actually Old Kent Road other than the bus stop. But I did find Old Kent Road surgery, which gives it away. So when nothing spectacular here, then caught another bus to catch a tube to then bring us to Whitechapel, which is far more interesting. Whitechapel Road is definitely a lot busier and livelier than Old Kent Road. There was actually people here, there was busier shops, there was a market going on, which apparently is always going on, and behind us is the Royal London Hospital. Yeah, so for the second property on the Monopoly board, it's not bad at all. The only bad thing is that it'd take me nearly 2 hours just to get to these two streets. These are the most isolated, per se, of the Monopoly board properties, with all the rest being in the West End. These are the only two not in the West End, Old Kent Road being the only one south of the Thames. So hopefully after this point, things begin to pick up the pace a little, having picked out the two outlier properties, and we start heading back into central London again. Just a note here, while I will try and do these properties in, order, as they should be done, in some cases I won't, just to avoid faffing about, but the general order will still be kept. Yeah, for example, our next stop is Angel, Islington, and not King's Cross, as I'll explain when we get there. So we arrived at the Angel, which was a former pub and is now a bank, as these things are. Apparently it was popular with the game's creators, so that's why it was included. It's one of few properties that is not a street, but actually a specific building. Now the reason we're doing this first and not King's Cross is because King's Cross is to our left, down Pentonville Road. And rather than going to King's Cross and walking down Pentonville Road here, then going back, I'm just going to save the faff. Go to the Angel, walk down Pentonville Road, take that off, King's Cross, then Euston Road. So with that said, let's walk down Pentonville Road towards King's Cross. And what is it, actually a lovely day for a walk. A bit hot, but thankfully Pentonville Road has a lot of trees. At the end of Pentonville Road, we arrive at King's Cross. But first you see the spires of St Pancras train station, which is not the train station we're going for, but King's Cross, which is on the other side at McDonald's, which is a very different architectural style. Now the thing about the stations on Monopoly board is that they're all termini of the LNER, which thanks to a recent rebranding is now back again as an actual brand, but no one really cares about that. You're just all here to see platform 9 3/4, which is around here, and yes, that is the queue to just get a picture by it. A great publicity scoop, so well done on them. To complete the light blue properties, we head outside and onto Euston Road, which conveniently takes you to Euston Station, but on the way we pass closer to St Pancras Station, which I have to say is one of the prettiest stations I've ever seen, and I can't believe someone actually designed a railway station to look like that. But we arrive at Euston Station where I get a train down to Embankment. This journey is actually the journey which capped out my Oyster card, so essentially after this we travel for free. That didn't take long at all, and I will heavily abuse the fact we're not paying for any more tube trains later in this video. But that's a quarter of the board done. It only took us 3 hours. So around the corner from Embankment Station, we find Northumberland Avenue. Again, we're doing things in slightly different order, doing Northumberland Avenue before Whitehall and Pall Mall. So Northumberland Avenue is a lot more typical of the West End, large marble buildings, trees. Used to be a lot of hotels here, but they've since moved on. It's now mostly offices, and though there is still a hotel or two and a playhouse. Northumberland Avenue leads to Trafalgar Square, which we are not visiting officially yet, but we do pass through it, bringing us to Pall Mall, which is home of many embassies, as are many streets in the area. Then, to finally finish off the purple properties, we recross Trafalgar Square and start walking down Whitehall, which is notable for having a lot of ministries, departments of the government, and in general being very white. It's called Whitehall for a reason. But we also pass the house cavalry and the horses, which stand guard. Though unlike the palace guards, these do not necessarily have to stand still all the time, and they will kick you. So walking back to the Thames, past the Ministry of Defence, you go back to Embankment to head to Marylebone. To get Marylebone Station, again another terminus of the LNER, and I didn't surface here since I'd already been here, and was really just doing this to do it in order and do it properly. With that done, we head back to the West End to find Bow Street. So we emerge at Covent Garden, which is just around the corner from Bow Street, which is the first of the orange properties, and we're actually doing these in somewhat of an order this time. Bow Street is a quiet street next to Covent Garden, and it actually is home to the Royal Opera House, which, after passing now, realize I've actually been here before, but haven't seen that. I come to the end of the street, we head back to Covent Garden, where having a sandwich, listen to the string quartet, which are nearly always playing there, and then make the mad dash down to Oxford Circus, up a Regent Street, make our way through the crowds, to find Great Marlborough Street, which is incorrectly labelled as Marlborough Street on the Monopoly board, but this is the one intended to be used. And then it's another across Regent Street and slip inside to Sackville Street, where it's a bit more quieter, and Savile Row, which is famous for its tailors, which you can see in some of the basements if you look closely. And then eventually we find Vine Street, which is this tiny little dead-end nearly street, which really seems out of place on a Monopoly board, especially as a reasonably valuable property as it is. But what am I to say? At this point, we're now halfway through the board, and it's only taken us 5 hours. What a speedy turn. We passed through Piccadilly Circus at the end of Piccadilly. Again, unofficially here, we'll come back here later, and also on the way to Trafalgar Square, past New Zealand House, which used to be a hotel where the founder of Vietnam used to work in 1913. There's a random fact you were not expecting in this video. Once again, repeating ourselves, we come on to Pall Mall, which leads us to Trafalgar Square, the first of the red properties we are here to visit. Again, not doing these in the exact order, but here in Trafalgar Square, which commemorates the Battle of Trafalgar, also home to the National Gallery, and Nelson's column, Admiral Nelson himself on top, and famous lines on the bottom. And from here we lead directly onto Strand, the next red property that we're going to visit. Again, another typical West End shopping street, quite long as well. Unfortunately, we have to walk the entire thing in near 30-degree weather because I have to come up to Fleet Street at the end. Along the Strand we found the Savoy Hotel, amongst other fancy hotels along this quite wide street. And as we walk further down, we found this thing, which is like, I don't know, YouTube's new thing, which for some reason they decided to put a big scaffolded building in. I've never seen something as twatty as that. But at the end of the Strand, we come to the Royal Courts of Justice, this very old looking courthouse building, which marks the start of Fleet Street, which is sort of like a continuation of the Strand, but a lot narrower. And yeah, so Strand, but narrower. We then hop back on the tube to head to Tower Hill to Fenchurch Station, but as you're there, we might as well have a look over the famous Tower of London before heading back towards the city to Fenchurch Station. I imagine the central location will be quite popular with commuters, but not really on this day, where for some reason something's gone wrong. There's massive delays, one of the exits is closed, so we have to walk right around the block even to get into the station, and there's huge queues out the front. Not that that bothered some of the folks who decided to spend the delays in the pubs, which were overflowing. So I walked back to Tower Hill Station and had to then navigate the London Underground during rush hour, which was getting increasingly busy and increasingly hot, as the Underground famously gets in July, but managed to survive it to reappear at Leicester Square, which I've turned the corner down this wide tourist street and huge crowds. To what was actually one of my favourite stops of this whole trip, as Leicester Square, I've never been here before. It's actually quite a nice little square and park in central London. Passing many people sitting on the grass, enjoying the shade from the intense heat, and a fountain, which for some reason had a wet floor sign in it, as if, no, fountains are supposed to do that. Also past a statue of Charlie Chaplin, and some bells from Switzerland, which led directly onto Coventry Street, our next property, which is a short street connecting Piccadilly Circus and Leicester Square. Piccadilly Circus, of course, leading on to Piccadilly, and it'll be round the corner then to Regent Street. And we're now only a quarter of the border left to go. So we walk down Regent Street, the famous shopping street, which brings us to Oxford Circus, which crosses with Oxford Street, the busiest shopping street in Europe, with over 300 shops. A short walk west on Oxford Street brings us to the third green property of Bond Street, well, New Bond Street, since there's two, old and new. But to finish off the stations, we have to cross all the way to the east of the city, to Liverpool Street Station, which involves another trip on the Central Line, more or less just to go appear in Liverpool Street Station, which itself is a nice station, but we're just here to say hello, hop back down the Central Line, more or less go directly where we came to Marble Arch Tube Station. So this brings us to the last two properties on the Monopoly board. First off at Park Lane, which is, as you would expect, a very wealthy street right next to a park. Marble Arch there beyond the side of that substation, and Hyde Park across the road. As you expect, large buildings, all sorts of wealth, and we take the bus then to cross the river. So the last property, Mayfair, is a bit of an oddity, considering Mayfair refers to an actual area in London and not a particular street, which coincidentally this bus will pass right through, as we head down Park Lane and in towards Westminster, travelling past, sports car dealerships, Westminster Abbey itself, the Houses of Parliament, and across the Thames, having crossed through Mayfair. But of course, when you go around the Monopoly board, we're not done yet. We need to head back to Lambeth North, cross Go. And of course, while you're here, you have to collect your £200 salary, get back on the tube, and head home, having completed a lap of the Monopoly board in real life, in 8 hours, or more or less exactly. Damn, I get bored at times.